Hi everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. This is Kathy, and today I have a card featuring the Warm and Feathered Hugs set by My Favorite Things. And I chose this set because I am creating a card for a stamp club that I am a part of. I started out by stamping that little guy onto a piece of 110-pound Nina Solar White cardstock. The only reason I chose the 110-pound is because I have some scraps and I would like to use them up. I stamped them in My Favorite Things Extreme Black Hybrid ink, and I stamped it twice just to get a really good impression. The second image there, I decided to use in a different card, and I figured since I had the stamp out and the stamp platform out, I might as well stamp them both at the same time. But I will only be coloring the one guy there. So for my stamp club, we have, well, I was part of this club when we still lived in California. And we have meetings once a month, we exchange cards, and then we have a challenge that we do every month. But since I moved 1,500 miles away, I do everything through email now. So I just make the card that goes with the theme for the month. And this card is for the month of February, and the theme is weather. So I thought it would be cute to create a little snowy scene and have the little owl on the sled going down a snowy bank. So the markers that I chose to color him are in the E70 family, and I noticed that they blend kind of like the grays. They'll blend very, very well together. So that is why I actually started with my mid-tone rather than my dark tone, because I haven't used these colors very often, so I'm still getting used to how they work together. And I did find that going in with my darkest color after having somewhat of my base colors down definitely helped in getting those colors blended out quite nicely. And I did have to work it to get those colors to blend, but again, that's, why I love my Copics, is because you can keep adding layers and layers until you get a blend that you are really happy with. Pretty much what I do here is I just kind of keep going over it and over it until I finally get all the harsher lines blended out. And then when I move on to the fur around his eyes, no, owls have feathers, not fur. So the feathers around his eyes and his belly, I switched to the E40 family. And these also blend really nicely together. I have found in using them, I have to let the ink really settle into the cardstock, otherwise I'll overblend it to death and lose all of my highlights or my shading that I'm going for. Although on this particular image, the E40 seemed to blend a little bit easier, and I'm wondering if it's because I used 110-pound cardstock rather than my usual 80-pound cardstock, or if it's just my imagination, or if I've just gotten used to those markers. Anyway, back to the coloring. I did the sled in the wood tone colors of the browns. My initial idea for the background on this card was a snowy type of scene, so I expected that the whole background would pretty much be white, and then I was going to have a little bit of patterned paper behind the panel with the owl on it. But that didn't work out quite like I thought it would, so I decided to do ink blending instead. So I cut a piece of cardstock using a stitched rectangle die and used shaded lilac and tumbled glass distress oxide inks. I didn't go all the way down to the bottom on that piece of cardstock because I knew that it was going to be covered up with a snowdrift that I had cut out previously. Once I was done with the blending, I set that aside to dry and put my little snowdrift in a stamp platform so I could stamp the sentiment. For the sentiment, I used VersaFine Onyx Black ink because it's really good ink to use when when the font is really fine like that. And then I wanted to add something else to the ink blended background, and I kind of dug through my stuff and I found Mr. Huey's Color Mist, and I had it in white. I was too afraid to just spray it because sometimes the nozzles get a little bit wonky. So I just took the nozzle out of the bottle and tried to flick it on top, and that sort of worked, but finally I just started dotting it directly from the end of the nozzle. To finish up the card, I adhered the snow drift using a tape runner, and then from there I adhered a piece of cardstock that I had run through my Big Shot with a snowfall embossing folder from Tailored Expressions onto a top folding white note card. And then I added some glue to my foam tape for my little panel with the owl, because it had been ripped off the other cardstock, so I want to make sure it was still sticky, and slap that on the front of the card, and that finishes it up. Thanks so much for tuning in today. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed, I'd love it if you would, and we will see you next time.